It is only January, but surprisingly enough, some actual midnight features were already leaked even as early as now. While some of these are of course only hints with big chances of some revamps outside of just Quel'Thalas, like the new draenei capital, as well as the presence of ethereals and potentially a new playable race, we have actually datamined actual strings that give us huge insight into player housing and how it will work as the main feature of midnight. Looks like Blizzard was right, and it really won't be Garrisons 2.0. There seem to be various themes, various plots of land. We have discovered various types of decors, customization from door sizes to walls. They also soft confirmed that player housing will be a social thing with visits from other players, as well as various types of layouts that shouldn't be linear at all. So let's take a look at everything we know about all the features that we will get in the next expansion, Midnight.
So I just opened a second channel for Raid where I've released a whole bunch of videos, and I'd really appreciate you guys checking it out, as currently a lot is happening in the game with a new update and the new completely free legendary champion Alice the Wanderer that you can get by simply logging in. All you gotta do is click my link in the description, download the game, or scan the QR code that is on the screen. Alice adventures upon us with 5 brand new legendaries from your favorite childhood stories, like the Queen of Hearts that you can get in the new event, the Mad Hatter, Cheshire Cat, Alice, that as I said you can get completely free by logging in for 7 days, and I've also fully reviewed her on my second channel only a few days back. If you're also just beginning, I've got some really quick guides on how you can get the best out, and it's so you can avoid making the same mistakes that I've made in the past. You'll be able to advance much quicker from campaign to dungeons to clan boss and arena, so that you can get into the late game content where it gets really fun. Best of all, Raid is cross-platform, so you can play it anywhere. So click my link in the description or scan the QR code and you will get insane bonuses. You will get a free legendary, you will get 2 epics, and that is just the start only with my link. You'll get the Goron sign up, you will get Ugo at level 15, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. Also, check out my channel, Doran's Arena.
I feel like people are not realizing how soon we are actually going to get Midnight. I know this is a bit weird to get your head around, as we've only gotten the War Within release a few months back. 11.0.5 and 11.1 seem to really be mainly filler patches. The story is going to continue soon after this, the main story. But based on the roadmap we had received from Blizzard, it shows us that Midnight is actually going to be announced this summer. Late summer. This implies a few very important things. The most important thing that it says is that the main storyline for the War Within will have to end by then. This means that 11.2 will be figured out with all the really important spoiler cinematics that will happen before then. Keep in mind, Midnight is literally the massive void invasion of Azeroth, a culmination of the War Within, and we have to figure out by then how it bridges from the War Within and Khazlagar into Midnight in the Eastern Kingdom. So all the storyline, the main stuff, the real meat of the expansion will happen prior to late summer and prior to the announcement. The other stuff, like 11.2.5, 11.2.7, will only be filling out loose ends, probably filler type patches or heritage type questlines that will set things straight for Midnight. So really, the preparation for the pre-patch. Now, I am aware that right now various fake roadmaps for Midnights are floating around, and I'm not going to be covering these, of course. This is not what the video is about, because it's obviously not real, and Blizzard wouldn't reveal a roadmap here too early, but we have a few hints currently in the PTR and the game on what could be coming in Midnight. But not to leave you with my crazy speculations here, we have actually datamined some strings, official strings from Blizzard, that answer so many questions for the most important feature of Midnight, and that is player housing. And this is of course a legit Blizzard leak, so it shows everything from plot stuff to decor and how player housing will work. Now, before we get into it, I just want to reference the roadmap again, because I think a lot of people don't realize that player housing seems to be coming out before Midnight is actually released, and that it won't be like a year and a half between Midnight announcement and actual expansion release. And all of this, of course, makes sense. First of all, we know that Midnight was half finished, like it was already heavily in progress by the time they announced the World Soul Saga back in 2023. Second, we know there won't be any 0.3 patches, so only 2 main patches with 2 mini patches in between, and some filler stuff like Plunderstorm. The roadmap shows 11.2 before Midnight announcement, and the other patches before housing. Now, I've talked about this in the previous video on the channel that you can check out, but this has been a systematic way of updating that Blizzard has been doing for ages now, and that is the update of all the faction capital as to what appears to be preparation for player housing, and it's really been ongoing since the Shadowlands, so nearly 5 years now. We got brand new Night Elven capital on a completely new island. We got the return of Quel'Thalas back in Dragonflight. We got the undead settling in Lordaeron. We're now getting a whole new Silvermoon. There were some questline hints that Orgrimmar may get expanded with a new dock. The goblins finally got their own capital, Undermined, that we will get in the War Within. On the other hand, back in Dragonflight, we got the questline where the Draenei confirmed that they're now settling on Azeroth, that they're building a new city, but nothing happened yet, which implies that we might get a Draenei city in something like 11.2.5 or 11.2.7, potentially before player housing gets implemented, which also implies that this player housing feature will be very elaborate. Now, before we read the actual datamined strings, I also want to mention something that is incredibly suspicious, and that is the datamined number of ethereal stuff. Now, I'm not saying for 100% certain that these are datamined midnight features, as it's still possible that they will use it in the War Within in something like 11.2. However, there has been a significant presence of the ethereals throughout this expansion, even hints that Zealotet may be related to them, but most importantly, we datamined a whole bunch of naked models, customizable models for the ethereals, with various bandage customization options, various colors, attachments, which does imply that they could potentially be playable, or at least very, very important. Now, 11.1 has been almost fully discovered. They don't seem to be using this model in this patch, which could imply that this feature may be saved for Midnight, and that the ethereal customization could be a part of it, and potentially even a new playable race, and we might get one of the patch zones to be Karesh in something like 12.1 or 12.2. However, interesting enough, on a build just a few days back from this video, people have managed to datamine a whole bunch of strings related to player housing, which is going to be the big midnight feature, and it looks like Blizzard was actually right in all the interviews. It wasn't just empty talk, it really won't be garrisons, the incredibly simplistic feature meant to just keep you logging in with 2 different plots of land, one for the Alliance, the other for the Horde. They said they wanted to do it right, and they have been trying to figure it out for more than a few years now. Now, keep in mind, these strings are only datamined now in January 2025, so it's very likely that these are subject to change. It doesn't say that this is 100% what will happen in Midnight, and since nothing is concrete, of course, it is also subject to interpretation, as this is not the leaked beta of Midnight, but just some behind-the-scenes code. So one of the strings says housing exterior component team, and the option that it shows is human, which heavily implies that housing is actually going to be race specific, that I've talked about more than a year ago. So it's not going to be the Horde and the Alliance version like the garrisons, but very likely each race will have their own style of architecture, which we have seen so far in the game throughout these 2 decades. The gnomes obviously have a different style compared to the dwarves, and especially the humans. It would be really lazy if all Alliance races just lived in human buildings. Furthermore, they got various strings for decor and components, and things like large and narrow doorways, which implies that not only will there be a whole bunch of customization options, but this really does seem like it will be a sandbox builder where you will be able to pick even door sizes and actually build things like a completely different game. Now, the decor theme strings show things like folk, rugged, generic, and opulent, which also implies that not only will it be race specific, but there will be various types of customization options. So you'll be able to build a great hall for a war chief with an orcish theme, but also opulent decors like that for the blood elves. Plus, maybe not everyone prefers the opulent style for the elves, so you might be able to keep it a bit more simplistic with the rugged customizations. There are some strings furthermore showing the various decor types like walls, ceilings, tabletops, which once again, as I said, show you how robust this is actually going to be. It's not going to be like pick this house or that house. We can pick door sizes, ceilings, tabletops, walls, and all sorts of features, which means that all these houses are going to be unique. However, this is not going to be just restricted to the interior. Our house is not going to be an apartment, but an actual house, as we have datamined exterior components that range from small, medium, and large, and this implies that we might be able to have our own garden or little objects outside of our house. Think of it something like maybe a watchtower, potentially a lighthouse, or maybe even a windmill, in order to customize the exterior of our brand new house. Interesting enough, there is also a save house feature as well, which implies that we might might be able to create actual house layouts, and you can save it in its entirety and like reuse it once again. In my opinion, I think this might be an account-wide thing in order to be able to share your houses to your alts, so you don't have to start building from scratch every time. This also potentially implies that house building is going to be robust and time-consuming as well. Now, we also have some interesting errors that we have discovered from the strings, which is of course open to interpretation, but it definitely does reveal a few things. One of the errors says max decor reached, which implies that there will be a limit as to how large your house can be and how much you can do, and I'm wondering at the moment whether this will be something that will expand over the years, and very likely it will be because they did say they plan to expand the system after it is implemented. So let's say you can only place 50 decor items, but if you finish the campaign or something or some achievement, you might be able to unlock more. This could mean that the more hardcore players would have bigger and richer houses as opposed to casuals. Now, another error says locked by other player, which is essentially a soft confirmation that other players will be able to visit our houses, which in my opinion is not that shocking at all. I think it is realistic that the most important part of player housing, I think people would be writing if other players weren't able to visit our house. Blizzard's whole shtick was that they don't want to create player housing to isolate the players from the community, but to enhance it instead, and I think the social factor of player housing is going to be a pretty big feature. Now, the last error string we have datamined is plot not found, which implies various plots of land. Unfortunately, this doesn't really reveal much, and I think, in my opinion, this is the most important part of player housing. It will be a pretty big deal whether every race will be able to settle on their own land, or whether we're just going to get some BS new undiscovered island off the coast of the Eastern Kingdoms, and everyone will just be living in this sandbox zone. I think this would be the lazy and the lame version of player housing. It doesn't make much sense as to why the draenei, the tauren, the orcs, the humans would live on some random island and not settle in like Mulgore or Durotar or whatever zone they prefer. I really wish the plots of land would be race specific and plentiful as well. I think having various sides of Azeroth available for player housing would be amazing. It would really make the world feel alive, and it would take so much more work, but it would definitely be worth it to promote this as a feature. This, however, we don't really know yet, but based on how long they've been preparing and discussing this feature, I do think it is a high possibility. So really, that is as much as we know about Midnight, and I feel like this is the main expansion of the World Soul Saga that the people are excited about. However, only a few months from now we will get the actual announcement, so we will know things for sure. Thanks for watching. Check out the upcoming Draenei capital by clicking on the screen, and check out my raid channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.